Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Pauline Erla de Guzman, Manager of International Student Services here at ISPO. I hope you're all well and in good health. Thanks for joining us for today's episode on how to support international students during COVID-19. Today's episode is the second in our series. Each episode highlights a different impact area, and today's will focus on how to support our newly admitted fall 2020 international students, and we'll take a look at some of the challenges that they are facing. Also joining me today is ISPO's Assistant Director of Student Experience and Engagement, Gabriela Hoffman, as well as Grace Fuller, Manager of Student Experience and Engagement. Just a few housekeeping items here. Before we begin, one, you're on listen-only mode, so you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Also, we're recording, so you'll be able to view this webinar at iwebinars.ucsd.edu in roughly 48 hours. And lastly, please ask questions. We want to hear from you. You can use the Q&A feature to submit questions, and I will be answering them for you through the chat today. And at the end of the presentation, you can also email Gabi, Grace, and I directly. Let's see here. At the end of our presentation, we'll also leave some time to answer some questions. Today, we'll be discussing where to refer newly admitted students regarding their immigration documents, challenges students are currently facing with obtaining documents and visa services, also impacts of recent presidential proclamations and travel restrictions, as well as how we plan to reframe this year's orientation content to address remote learning. We have got a lot to cover today, so Gabi, let's jump right in.
Thank you so much, Pauline. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. So ever since the beginning of our campus's lockdown and the many restrictions we saw put in place across the globe to help thwart the spread of coronavirus, ISPO has worked quickly to provide up-to-date information wherever possible to our international student and campus community. With so many unknowns in this difficult time, we wanted to ensure swift communication of any known information to our students and campus partners as soon as it became available so that we and the campus community could provide support wherever needed. To that end, and in partnership with many campus colleagues and units, we created the Coronavirus Information for International Students page on our istudents.ucsd.edu website in March, providing timely updates to both continuing and new students through a frequently asked questions section for each population. It is still consistently being updated as we learn more information about rules and regulations impacting our international student community for the various federal entities that govern the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. We encourage you to take a look at this website as it includes many different links and information to help guide our students through this difficult time. As in all years, ISPO sends out regular communication pieces to our newly admitted students, this time with more of an emphasis on coronavirus resources and where to turn for assistance amid the uncertainty of visa issuance and enrollment for fall 2020. These messages are archived on our global.ucsd.edu website for students to access throughout the spring and summer months prior to arrival. So the beginning of a student's visa journey, student's journey to UC San Diego starts with the documents that we are issued to these students for them to obtain their visas. So we're going to go ahead and get started here today. To support our students' efforts to come to UC San Diego this fall, the International Students and Programs Office continues to issue the necessary visa paperwork required for our students to apply for U.S. student F1 or J1 visas. While we are aware that most U.S. embassies and consulates around the world are either closed or offering very limited services during this time, we recognize that things can shift quickly, and we want our students prepared to attend their visa appointments should they open up availability on short notice again this summer. All students will receive a fall 2020 start date on their visa documents, that is, a September 28th, 2020 start date, unless the student is part of a special early start required program. Those students who are enrolled in the Early Start Summer program will be issued with a start date in accordance with that program's start date. The visa document issuance process is facilitated by the iPortal, which is ISPO's online request system that all international students have access to once they've accepted their offer of admission to UC San Diego. The student must normally wait about 72 hours after accepting admission to access the iPortal. They're required to upload a series of documents, including a copy of their passport and financial support documents, whether that's a department support letter or personal funds supporting their studies here. We also direct students to our minimum funding requirements for these documents, which is located on our new student page at inewstudent.ucsd.edu. If all requirements are met, the student should expect to receive their document within 10 business days. Despite our working from home situation, none of this has been interrupted throughout the pre-arrival season, and we've continued to issue documents in a timely manner to all of our students. Okay, so now I want to go into the three major challenges our students are facing in getting to the United States. They are, of course, one, the embassy and consulate closures across the globe that I just mentioned. Two, the presidential proclamation issued on May 24th that suspends entry to immigrant and non-immigrant students and scholars who are Chinese nationals and affiliated with any institution that, quote unquote, implements and supports the People's Republic of China's military-civil fusion strategy. I do want to note that this does not include undergraduate students, but of course we do have a sizable graduate student population from China, so this does impact them. And the third impact here is the recent US Department of Transportation suspension of Chinese airlines flying to the US effective June 16th. ISPO is consistently monitoring State Department and other governmental website updates should these suspensions be lifted, and will communicate this to students and fellow staff. We know that even if they are lifted, there will be a backlog in appointments with regard to visa appointments. And we know that some students may not receive an appointment until very close to or even after the fall quarter has begun. Options for those students include remote learning for fall, which I'll go over in my next slide. Our Chinese national students who are impacted by the May 24th proclamation will be given the same guidance regarding remote options for fall. ISPO is working closely with campus leadership, admissions, the graduate division, and the colleges to keep them informed of these challenges impacting our students. We are also communicating any updates and information we receive with our students. So with these travel restrictions and the uncertainty of visa issuance, what can we expect for this fall? For students unable to arrive on campus this fall, ISPO is informing students about the following two options. The first is the remote instruction, which was announced, of course, a couple of months ago by campus. So students, again, who are unable to receive their visa in time or who cannot travel are encouraged by ISPO to enroll in remote instruction for fall 2020. These students can continue processing their F1 visa while they study full-time in their home country. Full-time enrollment is permitted while they're studying remotely. The hope then is, of course, then that should restrictions ease by winter, that these students can arrive in person for winter 2021. And I just want to note that ISPO orientation and welcome programs will be provided for students arriving in winter 2021, as well as programs that we already have planned for fall 2020. So these students will be supported during this time. The other option is a deferral of program start date. So students who wish to delay their studies 1 quarter or more can defer. But in these cases, we are encouraging those students to work directly with admissions or their department on deferral options. If this is approved, the student can request a visa document with their new program start date, which could be winter 2021 or a later date. There are 3 scenarios in which an international student may already be in the US and who therefore may begin their programs of study at UCSD in person without having to worry about obtaining a visa stamp or be concerned with some of these travel restrictions. In times like this, when travel restrictions can limit options, this can be very helpful for those who plan to study here in person this fall. Many international students, with our first example here, receive as transfers. Many international students come to UCSD directly from either high school or another US university to pursue their studies, where they were already in F1 student status. If students are unable to return to their home country to process the appropriate F1 or J1 student visa, they may have the option to pursue a CVIS transfer if eligible. There is no need to travel internationally and obtain a new visa stamp if following this process correctly, even if their current visa is expired. If students meet eligibility and follow the transfer process correctly, they can remain in the US in valid F1 status over the summer and begin classes on time. Some international students are in the US on a different visa type or status, usually due to a parent or spouse having obtained a work-based or student visa, for example. These students may decide to pursue what's called a change of status to F1 to enable them to study full-time at UC San Diego. The student must apply for this change of status through US Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS. The student can remain in the US and maintain their status while their application is pending, and they are not required to obtain a visa stamp from the consulate outside the US. The downside to this is that the application can take anywhere from 3 to 9 months to be approved, and depending on what type of visa they are currently on, if the change to F1 is not approved by the start of fall quarter, they may not be able to begin classes full-time until the change of status is approved. Finally, some international students may already be here and will remain here over the summer because they have just completed a degree at UC San Diego and have been accepted into a higher level degree program here. These students are called change of level students. All I-20 paperwork to facilitate this change to a higher degree level is handled directly through ISPO, and there's no requirement for the student to travel or obtain a new visa. If you're working with a student in this situation, please refer them to our new student website, inewstudent.ucsd.edu, for important information. We know a lot of staff and students are wondering about employment authorization for international students in a remote setting as well. ISPO is still in the process of working with campus payroll to gather more information about the changes involved in hiring an international student for an on-campus position. However, we can confirm that remote employment is permitted. What will look different is the employment verification, or I-9 process, more specifically due to tax forms that need to be completed for state and federal tax exemptions. For more information, more information about the on-campus employment process and what will look like for remote study students this fall, tune in to our third webinar in our series, Focusing on Employment, which is being held on June 18th. Another issue of concern among our students is the ability to take advantage of off-campus work authorization benefits if they engage in remote study for fall 2020. At this time, students issued with an I-20 or DS 2019 from UC San Diego starting in fall 2020, maintaining full-time enrollment for one academic year for F1 students or one academic quarter for J1 students, we are interpreting that they are eligible for F1 CPT, F1 OPT, or J1 academic training work authorization benefits. Note that the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, or SEVP, has not released further official guidance on how remote enrollment can count toward the one academic year requirement, but ISPO is monitoring closely and will inform students and staff of any potential changes. And just a note I wanted to make as well about optional practical training, or OPT, program advocacy. In the last several months, numerous trade, industry, and higher education associations and groups are focusing their advocacy efforts on the optional practical training and STEM OPT programs. As many of you may know, the OPT program offers talented international students who complete their degrees the opportunity to remain in the US for a period of time and enhance their educational experience. Recent media coverage indicates that the current administration plans to curtail the OPT and STEM program. Changing the program would serve to undermine decades of collaborative work between the US and international partners in the fields that contribute to the health and economic security of our country. With that in mind, there are several advocacy efforts in support of sustaining these programs underway, which are now listed on our website at the link here on your page. We encourage you to take a look and also encourage our students. We are communicating this advocacy to our students as well to let them know we are aware of these challenges and everything that is being done to advocate for these programs. So with that, I'd like to now hand things over to my colleague, Grace Fuller, to talk about some of the ways we are engaging and supporting our international students this summer through our orientation and transition programs.
Thank you so much, Gabi. We are excited to welcome our incoming class of international students via our International Orientation Program. Like many orientation programs on our campus, we are in the process of reconstructing the international orientation experience to ensure an engaging experience for both our remote learning as well as in-person students. Right now, we plan on hosting our webinars virtually during the first few weeks of September, as well as exploring in-person components as they become possible. We are excited to continue to work with many of our campus partners, such as the colleges, graduate division, and parent and family programs to create a cohesive international orientation experience and welcome them to the Triton community. In addition to orientation, we have a number of programs in place to support our international students as they transition to UC San Diego. For our undergraduate students, we work with the colleges to support their Global Ambassador Program, a summer peer mentorship program designed for incoming non-resident students. Furthermore, the GAP mentors, the International Orientation Assistants, and the International Peer Coaches all come together to make up the Student Success Team for our international students. These student leaders all serve as different touch points in the international students' journey as they transition to UC San Diego. As well as for our graduate students, our graduate student intern coordinates the Grad Pals Peer Mentorship Program. This intern works closely with the Graduate Student Association, as well as the International Graduate Student Advisory Council to coordinate various programs and resources for incoming graduate students, such as the Graduate Student Welcome Guide. And finally, we coordinate a number of different webinars and other resources that students can utilize as they prepare for their time. Our pre-arrival webinars cover a multitude of different topics, such as first steps, student health, housing, student life, and all go into detail about how these topics specifically relate to them as international students. We have also worked with different student organizations, such as our Chinese student organizations, a Brazilian student organization, to design webinars around common questions they're receiving and address topics of interest or concern. We're committed to centering the student voice and experience through our programs and services. And as we look into the future, we're excited to explore new collaborations, such as a Summer Start program, in partnership with Extension, the Teaching and Learning Commons, Student Retention and Success, and the Graduate Division. This program would be designed to engage incoming international students in the summer so they can learn about academic success strategies, connect to the Triton community, and access campus services and resources. More to come on this, so stay tuned.
Okay, thank you, Grace and Gabi. As we conclude our presentation, I did want to ask if anyone had any questions that they wanted to ask at this time or clarification. Okay, well, thank you all for attending today's webinar. You can always email Gabi, Grace, and I for more information. I hope this was informative and provides you all with some context of how you can better support our international community. Please register for episode 3, where we'll be addressing impacts of COVID-19 on employment eligibility for this fall and beyond. As we conclude today's webinar, just a few reminders. This will be recorded and will be available for you to all view again on iwebinars.ucsd.edu. Also, you'll be receiving an email shortly with a survey with a link to a survey. So please let us know how we did today. Please review also the email which we included resources that were included within this presentation. On behalf of our staff at ISPO, stay safe, stay healthy, and take care. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye for now.